Before starting this review, I did my research. I looked up a bunch of things before doing this review because I wanted to get this right. Because when I was watching this movie, I was like, this just doesn't feel like a Spielberg movie. Even though he did on the credits says screenplay by Steven Spielberg. I did a lot of research, guys. So hopefully this review is the most accurate review you guys can get from my opinion and from my sources that is basically Google. But let's get started. AI, artificial intelligence. Released in 2001, directed by Steven Spielberg, and cinematography by Janusz Kumaszowski, who just said, hey, let's gloss this movie up, because the movie is set in the future. We have flying cars, weird cars, and robots and AIs are basically used because people in the corporation are trying to make a loving robot, a loving AI, so they come up with a boy, a kid named David, played by Haley Joel Osment. They're going to give him to this family, and they're going to let this family imprint him and become a loving AI, a robot, a non-human. Things go wrong, things don't work out, which leads to Haley Joel Osment going out on his own, trying to figure out how he can become a real boy. So in basic terms, it is Pinocchio, and the movie has referenced Pinocchio a bunch. Like, he is looking for the blue fairy, which is from the story of Pinocchio, and he joins up with Jude Law, who is a sex robot. He is there for loving, and he has sex with people, and that's him. And he's got really slick hair, he's got a shiny forehead. But no, this movie was interesting. If you guys don't know, this is my very first time watching this film. I've never seen it. I've never seen clips. I've only seen posters, images, and I know of the movie. And I own it on Blu-ray, and I watched it today. And just my honest reaction to you guys, this, just watching it, feels like a movie that Spielberg just didn't have his hands in. Like, when Spielberg makes a movie, he usually makes a movie that he is passionate about. Like, he wants to make this story come to life, and it's one of the best things about him. Then I looked at my research after watching this movie, and after doing research, I noticed things. I actually rewind the movie and noticed a few things. So actually, Spielberg was doing this film because Stanley Kubrick, one of the greatest filmmakers of all time, died in 1999, and Steven Spielberg was like, I need the story that he was doing. He grabbed that screenplay, he made maybe a few changes, he kept main storylines, and he made this film his next film. So while Spielberg was trying to make the movie Stanley really reimagined, but Stanley apparently was all thinking like he wanted this movie made, but he was waiting for the technology to really get into place to where he was trying to make this movie perfect. And Steven Spielberg apparently just, when the time came, he did everything he can. And watching the movie, rewinding a few just scenes, you can tell Spielberg is trying to say, hey, Stanley, you are my best friend. You are an inspiration to me. I love you, man. When you passed away, I was gonna make this movie for you, just for you, man. And it feels like a love letter to Stanley Kubrick, and I have no problem with that, to be honest. I'm glad he did it, but just the movie and entertainment value, it's definitely not my favorite Spielberg film. My positives are Spielberg, of course, direction is great. I mean, the movie looks great. Very glossy cinematography, like I talked about in Saving Private Ryan review. Very glossy in this review. 100% you can tell on that. But to be fair, it's more futuristic, so it kind of goes with it, whatever. Haley Joel Osment, the first 30 minutes, man, it's a horror movie. He's creepy. I can't lie. He's a creepy little kid. But he's playing the part where Spielberg was directing him, and to be honest, he was really good in the role. Jude Law, very strange robot, but you know, he's good in the role. Everyone does a good job. It's just the tones, man. Like, the tone is everywhere. There's certain scenes where I'm like, is this supposed to be funny, or is this supposed to be like awkward? Like, I don't know. Like the scene where Haley Jones was at dinner and he's like laughing, whatever, and it's just really creepy. And you're like, is this supposed to be funny? And where he eats spinach and he messes up his stomach. Like, there's scenes that are meant for a Stanley Kubrick film. Like, I mean, crying out loud, have you ever seen Clockwork Orange? Yeah, that man, he could have done this movie and the tones probably would have worked. But for this, I feel like Spielberg missed the mark entirely. There's just, the tone is everywhere, and there's like a really weird just scene where these robots are getting trashed and they're getting blown up, whatever, and there's like a rock star and they're all singing and people are cheering, whatever. The scene's very random, and I'm just like, I don't get you. But it just, all of it felt like someone was like, Stanley Kubrick, and I guess Spielberg was trying to do the best he can, but man, oh man, this movie's just, It's very off-putting. Now, the one thing I can for sure praise is these damn practical effects and the CGI. Stan Winston did the practical and animatronics. Everything I saw animatronic-wise looks fucking awesome. My favorite character is Teddy. Teddy was an awesome animatronic, but when he moved and ran around, it was obviously CGI. But man, oh man, the animatronics for these certain robots, the makeup effects, these things were like, this is amazing, and that is why Stan Winston, rest in peace, my man. He will live on in history for doing Jurassic Park, and I have never seen this movie till now, but wow, man, Stan Winston's animatronics, freaking amazing. Hands down. And John Williams' music is really good. I really like the music throughout this entire movie, except for the rock and roll scene, which I thought was weird. But besides those things in the movie, just production-wise, I wasn't entertained. I wasn't, like, really intrigued. The first 40 minutes, it's basically a horror movie, like I said. And then once we meet Jude Law, the movie picks up. It's more entertaining. There's a really cool chase scene with guys on a bike chasing the robots, whatever. And it's a good action, fun scene, I guess. And we get the rock sign scene. Then we get to a scene where Ron Williams plays, like, a I know everything robot, which was a very weird cameo, but hey, I mean, Ron Williams is Ron Williams, so I love him and all. And then we get to the ending. Spoilers major, because, so we get a scene where he goes underwater and he basically freezes. I feel like the movie should have ended there. But then there's another 20 minutes of, like, aliens, which it turns out wasn't aliens. They're robots, apparently. They're not aliens, but they look like aliens. And it's 2,000 years later, and they wake Haley Joel Osment up from being frozen to give him one more day with his mom, his mommy, he calls her, from the Blue Fairy, which they mangle up from Imaginary. And it's like, what the fuck is this ending? It's like, where did this come from? And I actually thought it was Spielberg, because it felt Spielbergy, glossy, good tone, whatever. Turns out, Stanley Kubrick made this ending. He made this ending, and apparently people on set were telling Spielberg, we can cut this out. It's like, we don't need to do this. But Spielberg wanted to do this for Stanley, and he did it. And I respect him for that, but overall, I have to say it's a mess of a movie. And I'm gonna give the movie a C+. I think the acting is really good, the animatronics, the production design, the look of the movie, the futuristic cars, all of it was really well made. The story was all over the place, the tone, the characters were meh at times, whatever. I just think the movie is an overall mess, but you know, he did it for Stanley. Rest in peace, man. The Shining will always be my favorite Stanley Kubrick film, then 2001. But Spielberg did it for him. And now we get to move on to Spielberg reviews, and my next one is Minority Report. I am excited to talk about this movie. I have not seen it in probably 10 months or so. It's been a good minute, but I've seen it a bunch of times though. Hope you guys enjoy this review, and I'll see you guys on Monday. Bye-bye, guys.